Hello, dragonflies! Welcome to the Gilmore Gals podcast, where we take a deep dive into each episode of the beloved show.
We're your hosts, Sarah
and Ani.
We're huge Gilmore Girls fans, and we're besties. In this podcast, we talk about everything Gilmore, from the pop culture references to the tiniest minutia only a true Gilmore nerd would care about.
Copper boom! Hi, Sarah. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm excited for this episode. I actually like this one in season 1.
Me too. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, well, today we're going to be doing season 1, episode 7. It's called Kiss and Tell. It's written by Amy Sherman Palladino and Genji Cohen. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. And it was directed by Rodman Flender.
Let's dive right into our synopsis. This episode aired on November 16th, 2000. Rory slips into Dosey's Market to see Dean and gets an unexpected first kiss. She then proceeds to run, awkwardly and recklessly, through the town and finds Lane to tell her all about it. Unfortunately, Rory doesn't share the news with her mother, who then has to hear it from Mrs. Kim. To show how cool she is with the whole thing, Lorelai invites Dean over for a movie night to Rory's horror and embarrassment.
All right, let's get started with some fast facts. This is the first time we meet Taylor Dosey in person. I believe he was mentioned in a previous episode, wasn't he?
Yes, when Kirk was the assistant manager.
Ah, yes. Well, Taylor is played by Michael Winters, who was a longtime theater thespian, and he was also a teacher at the Pacific Conservatory of the Performing Arts in Santa Monica, California. Woo woo. And a hat tip to the Gilmore Girls companion book. And you know that one you got me, Sarah?
Mm-hmm.
Hat tip to them. They said that Winters was a friend, teacher, and mentor to James Marsters, who we all know and love as Spike on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which was another WB show. And in fact, Michael Winters was even up for the role of mayor there in Sunnydale. Do you remember that role?
I don't. It's been so long since I've seen that show.
He was an interesting fella, but that role actually ended up going to an old friend of Winters. His name is Harry Groner. I think Groner is how you pronounce it, who, in my opinion, did a really great job with the role. It was a very quirky, odd character who, spoiler alert, ended up being the bad guy. So I don't know if I could see Taylor in that role. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Did you have a crush on Spike as well?
No.
I totally did. I think it was the accent.
Yeah. He does have a pretty great accent. Next up is the pop versus soda debate. So Dean asks Rory if she'd like a pop or something. And of course, she teases them about it because in Connecticut, they call it soda. And I can relate to this so hard. Of course, in Michigan, where I'm from originally, it's called pop. So when I moved to California, I got made fun of all the time by my new coworkers. Eventually, they shamed it out of me, and now I call it soda, and it feels strange to hear it called pop when I go back to visit.
Do you make fun of your family when they say pop?
No. No, and I'm surprised they don't make fun of me for still calling it soda when I go back. And then as to where the original term soda pop came from, and this is according to Wikipedia, soda comes from the mineral sodium, and the pop is courtesy of poet Robert Southey, who once wrote to his wife that the drink is called pop because pop goes the cork when it is drawn, and pop you would go too if you drank too much of it. Eventually, the two terms combine to become soda pop. Obviously, what you call it now is a regional thing, with northern and midwestern states most likely to call it pop. East and west coasters know it as soda, and the South often simply refers to it as Coke. I found a cute little map online that I'll post on our socials, and we would love to hear from our listeners. Let us know what you call it. Is it pop, soda, or Coke?
Very interesting. Now, let me ask you something. In the South, when they say Coke, that covers all types of soda?
Yes.
They just call them all Coke.
Or just all Coke.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I didn't notice that when I lived in Arkansas. I didn't pay attention to that. All right. Shall we get started with the recap?
Let's dive right in.
This episode starts with the girls walking to Luke's for breakfast, during which they engage in a strange conversation to occur between a mother and daughter. The fact that mom is going commando. Why? Because she hasn't done laundry. I personally, as a mother, cannot imagine having this conversation with my child. I don't care how old she is. And also gross. Like, go look for one, find one, turn it inside out or something. Don't go commando.
Seriously, I would be mortified. And also in my world, laundry is a fend for yourself kind of chore. None of this like teaming up and doing laundry together thing. Yeah, I learned how to do my own laundry when I was 9. And ever since then, I've just done my own. And of course, sometimes if Mikey needs me to do some for him, I will. And I'm usually the ones that do our linens. But overall, we kind of do our own laundry.
That is crazy. So you do your laundry, he does his own.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That never even occurred to me. I just do everybody's.
Yeah. I know you're always doing laundry.
I'm always doing laundry. Yes, constantly. But there's 4 of us and there's only 2 of you.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that you said you were 9.
Mm-hmm.
You were 9 when you learned how to do laundry.
Yeah. Because my mom was pregnant with my youngest brother, Josh.
Oh.
And she had gestational diabetes, and I think she had some other like health issues during that pregnancy, and our laundry was in the basement. And at least she told me she couldn't go down up and down the stairs anymore. And so that was how I had to learn how to do my own. She like wrote everything down for me step by step.
Well, that's wonderful, because that's what a mother ought to do, right? Teach your child things. Guess how old I was when I learned how to do laundry?
18.
23.
I was going to say 23.
23 only because I moved out of the house at that point. I finished college, I finished grad school, and I was living on my own. And I just kind of went down to the laundry room and was like, okay, well, you know, what the heck? I'm just going to do this, and either I ruin all my clothes or it's going to turn out fine. Yeah, nobody bothered to teach me. I was an only child, and I was spoiled, I guess. I don't know. My mother didn't. She just did my laundry for forever. Isn't that awful? Oh, you better believe I'm teaching Zoe as soon as humanly possible how to do her own laundry. I've already started teaching her how to fold stuff, you know? So
oh, good.
I don't have to do it because, oh my God, I can spend hours folding clothes. Inside Luke's, we overhear the first of many Luke Taylor bickering matches. These are famous, and these are some of the funniest exchanges of the series.
I was so excited to see that we finally were going to have Taylor in this episode, and I didn't realize how much I love Taylor as a character until I rewatched this episode. And here, Taylor is engaging in his annual attempt to get Luke to participate in the town's autumn festival by asking him to decorate a bit for Thanksgiving. He suggests, quote, a few streamers and a paper turkey. Luke says he doesn't have to do anything but serve food, yet the girls have been sitting there trying to get his attention for a few minutes now during this while this argument is playing out. And finally, Rory shouts out, hey, my mom's not wearing any underwear.
It always seemed to me that Lorelai's reaction to that, screaming that out, was super understated. Like, if Zoe did that to me, I would have died of embarrassment, and I would have been so mad at her.
Well, maybe because nobody was actually paying attention anyway. It didn't seem like they heard her. They were so involved in their argument.
Yeah, maybe. So even the underwear comment fails to get anyone's attention. So Lorelai decides to just serve herself, and then away they go without paying, of course.
Even though she had been waving money around at him, trying to get his attention, and he still was just completely out of it. As they leave, Luke shouts after her, don't sit on any cold benches, making it clear that he did, in fact, hear the no underwear mention. Yeah, I bet he did.
He tucked that one away for later. So in the next scene, we see Rory entering Dosie's Market, where she pretends to read the back of a cornstarch box, but really she's there to see Dean.
We get the aforementioned pop soda teasing, and I must applaud Rory for her flirting skills. She has gotten much better at it, or really even just talking to Dean, since they both have admitted that they liked each other. Well, for the next few minutes, she's better at talking to boys anyway.
So she's still holding the box, the cornstarch box, when Dean leans in for a kiss. Both, I will note, without consent and interrupting her mid-sentence, which was very 20 years ago. You remember when this was considered romantic? Remember that, Sarah? It happened all the time. And we were like, oh, he just loves her so much. He just got her to finish her thought. And then, do you remember, did you ever watch Dawson's Creek?
I did.
Okay, I was obsessed with that show. Do you remember the Joey Pacey kiss?
I don't.
On the side of the road?
I don't.
Oh, it's so worth rewatching. Oh my God. It's so great. I love their whole all of season 3, all of the little Joey Pacey stuff. I just love it. Anyway, he totally does that too. she's talking and he just like grabs her face and kisses her. And at the time I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Anyway, oh my gosh, consent, people, very important. So after the kiss, Rory very politely says, thank you. And then while she's still holding the cornstarch box, she makes a beeline for the door.
I just have a quick side note on Jared Padalecki, who, of course, plays Dean. Have you seen him lately, Ani?
No. Why?
Well, because I recently saw a clip of him doing an interview and he just looks different. I mean, I guess it's been, over 20 years since this role, but he just looks he almost looks like a completely different person.
In a good way or a bad way?
I think in a good way. Like he doesn't look like he's had a rough time or anything. But he just looks like, I don't know, I guess he just looks like a grown man now, which I mean, he is.
The last time I remember seeing him as an adult was in A Year in the Life. You remember he has a small role.
Yeah.
He did look very different there, but just more grown up. I don't know. I didn't like his face when he was young. I thought it looked dumb, and I think he grew into it. And he's handsome now.
He also has a beard now, so maybe that's part of it too.
That's not good. Men, stop with the beards. It's not okay. All right, go ahead.
So Rory then she darts into the street where she narrowly avoids getting hit by a car, which seems to happen an awful lot in this town.
Mm-hmm.
And she makes a beeline over to Lane's.
And Rory is excitedly recalling all the details, everything that happened at the store, which Lane is just eating up.
And of course, Mrs. Kim overhears this conversation. And when she demands to know who has been kissing Rory, Lane replies with one of my favorite lines this episode. The Lord, Mama.
Which seems to satisfy her. She just walks away.
That's like, oh, okay.
Okay. No, Rory describes to Lane how the whole thing went down. And then Lane goes, I'm so jealous. That's it. I've got to get some dumb, ugly friends.
I thought that was funny too. I really liked Lane in this episode.
Yeah, she's cute.
Lane, of course, encourages Rory to tell Lorelai about the kiss, but Rory's hesitant because of the last big argument they had around Dean.
They have a few, if memory serves, arguments about Dean.
Yeah.
So Rory arrives at home and she's still sort of in her like dreamlike post-kiss glow. And she sees that Lorelai has emptied the entire contents of their fridge onto the floor. And she's on the phone arguing with various fridge customer service guys
who are making her imitate the noise that the fridge is making, which I thought was funny.
Yeah.
She's like, so after the call, which does not go the way she anticipated, Lorelai is in a very bad mood because she demanded that they be there the next day to fix it between 8 and 9 because she says she has a job and a life. And when they hang up, they're like, okay, we'll be here next week between 8 and 3.
Right? So rude.
So Lorelai is, of course, in a very bad mood. And Rory probably wisely decides that that moment is not the right time to tell her mom about that kiss.
Probably a good decision. So in the next scene, Lorelai enters Kim's Antiques, where she's picking up a rocker that she had bought like 6 weeks ago.
Mrs. Kim is giving Lorelai a hard time about waiting so long to pick up the rocker and tells her that maybe if she wasn't so busy all the time, then Rory wouldn't be running around kissing boys.
So Lorelai's like, huh? She's confused. And at first she thinks that Mrs. Kim must be mistaken because there's no way, in her mind, there's no way that Rory would have her first kiss and not tell her about it.
And then when Mrs. Kim continues and tells her that she kissed a boy at the grocery store, quote, the grocery store where we buy our food. And that is Mrs. Kim's quote of the day.
Ding, ding.
Lorelai begins to realize that she wasn't mistaken at all. She makes a quick exit, leaving the rocking chair behind again. Now, can you imagine, first of all, I mean, she's shocked, probably heartbroken, disappointed, all these emotions going through that Rory had her first kiss and didn't tell her. And then on top of all that, that the person that told her was Mrs. Kim.
Ugh, with all that judgment layered on top.
Oh,
she already doesn't like her. She doesn't like Rory.
Yeah.
On top of all that. Ugh, so sad.
Poor Lorelai.
Next, we see Rory and Lane working the can drive in the town square, and they're dressed as adorable little pilgrim girls.
And Lane is begging Rory to retell the kissing story for probably the umpteenth time. And we also learned that Lane has done some serious recon of Dean from his best friend, including the fact that he had a girlfriend named Beth in Chicago.
And Rory says she hates the name Beth. And I have to say, I agree. No offense. Mm-hmm. I'm not a fan. Almost any other derivation of Elizabeth works for me. But just not Beth. It feels so like 1857, doesn't it?
It's definitely got an older sound to it. So then Lane has also found out from Dean's best friend that Dean hasn't been able to talk about anything but Rory for weeks. Swoon.
They're so cute. I mean, His face isn't, but they're cute together. So at Luke's, Miss Patty is giving Luke a hard time, again, like Taylor was, for not having any harvest decorations up.
And I love that because you could really tell that like she was a plant,
Yeah,
she's
absolutely.
like, oh, it would make this place look a little better.
Yeah, exactly.
So then he tries talking to Lorelai, and then he snaps at her because she is just kind of lost in thought, and he thinks that she's ignoring him and angry with him too. But really, she's just kind of staring at Lane and Rory giggling across the square.
And then Rory comes in and Lorelai mentions how busy Rory has been and that they haven't really talked in a few days. And she awkwardly tries to get Rory to like share about what's been going on with her. She tries to mention the kiss or whatever in a roundabout way, but to no avail.
Instead, Rory suggests talking about the melting polar ice caps. And I understand Lorelai is frustrated that she's not telling her about this kiss, but her response of big deal bugs me because it is a big deal. As the environmentalist here, I was like, it is a big deal. We're having major issues now.
To be fair, it was 20 years ago.
It was 20 years ago.
Yeah. But yes, it is a big deal. Thank you very much.
So then Lorelai starts a new tack, and she starts trying to lure the details out of Rory by talking about the new Lucky from General Hospital. Now, I totally watched General Hospital during this time.
Really?
Mm-hmm. The old Lucky that she's referring to was played by Jonathan Jackson, who was on that show from 93 to the late 90s or early 2000s. And he has also appeared in several other movies from this time, including one of my childhood favorites, Camp Nowhere.
Oh my God, I love that movie.
Yes. So he was the main kid in that. And I think that's probably why when I saw he was on General Hospital, I started watching it when he went on. And also he was in a little movie in the early 2000s called Tuck Everlasting. Also starred Alexis Bledel.
Fascinating. So did that movie come out after this scene?
It did. Yeah, I looked it up. It came out in 2005.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And then Jonathan Jackson has also had a bit of a music career. And recently he was in the ABC series Nashville in the 2010s.
Okay, so Jonathan Jackson, what is he up to?
So as far as I can tell, like his music, and yeah, it doesn't look like he's had a ton of like acting credits lately, but I think music maybe. Yes.
Right. Yeah, Camp Nowhere. That's the one where the kids all kind of hang out at a camp or something, and there's like
they like scam their parents, and because their parents all want to send them away to summer camp and none of them want to go, so they find Christopher Lloyd, who he was an actor, I think, or like an acting teacher or something, and he's kind of down on his luck, and they hire him to pose as the head of all these different camps, and he goes around to all the different parents and basically sells the camp, and then they all go and like stay in this place, and it's basically just a bunch of kids running.
I remember two things from this movie, only two things. So I liked it. I watched it several times. Here's what I remember. It taught me the word potential. Do you remember that?
No.
They say it a few times. And that there was this skinny girl whose mom was like, oh, it's a fat camp. We need to send her to
I know.
Camp.
Oh, I know.
I was like, what? There's nothing wrong with her. She looks perfectly healthy.
I know.
Yeah, that bothered me.
90s. So next, Lorelai heads over to Dosie's and she wants to spy on Dean like a creeper. And Luke actually sneaks up on her and she tells him that Rory got kissed and that guy did it.
So she's clearly losing it. She says that Lothario over there has wormed his way into my daughter's heart and mouth, and for that he must die.
Luke is like, okay, you can't kill the bag boy. It's double coupon day. You'll bring down the town.
So Luke pushes her out of the store. He's like, okay, come on, crazy lady, let's go. They start to walk down the street and she says, you want to know something crazy? With her crazy. Dean kind of looks like Christopher. The hair, the build, something about the eyes. Okay. He looks nothing like Christopher, right?
No, not at all.
Okay. Maybe they hadn't cast the Christopher yet, but he doesn't have the hair, the build, the eyes, nothing. They know nothing alike.
He's a teenage boy. That's about
exactly.
The only thing. Yeah.
They're both male.
So Lorelai is worried because Rory tells her everything else, but this guy thing, she's keeping a secret, and that's not good, especially considering Lorelai's past of being a teen mom. So she resolves to prove to Rory that she thinks this is all great, even though she clearly doesn't, and everything will go back to normal.
In the next scene, we see Rory arrive home, and Lorelai just casually assaults her with, so, kissed any good boys lately?
After some back and forth, Rory asks, so what now? No lecture about kissing a boy?
And Lorelai says, No. Why? Did you do it wrong?
Which of course makes Rory be like, I don't think so. Lorelai tries to tell her that she thinks it's great and that she's thrilled, but Rory pretty much sees through this and is like, you are totally weirded out by this.
She seems totally weirded out.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't hide it.
No.
She doesn't hide it well. She thinks she does, but she's not. So next we see the girls heading down through town. They are planning to watch Willy Wonka for their movie night. So of course they need massive amounts of junk food.
Of course.
So they head over to Dosie's.
Now, Rory really doesn't want to go in the store once she realizes that Dean might be in there. She says it's too weird and makes Lorelai promise she won't interrogate Dean or make kissing noises.
Very mature of her.
Mm-hmm.
Lorelai's also not allowed to tell any stories from Rory's childhood or refer to Chicago as Chi-Town or make James Dean jokes or stare at Dean with a father with a shotgun expression. And no Nancy Walker impressions.
So did you know who Nancy Walker was?
I didn't. I looked her up. And then as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, yeah, okay. I get it now.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to look her up too. I didn't know her by name. But Nancy Walker, I did a little deep dive. Nancy Walker was an American actress of the stage and screen, as well as a director at a time when that was not common for women. And she worked with all kinds of big names, including Lucille Ball, Judy Garland, and Mickey Rooney, and a bunch of other people. And for 20 years, she played Rosie in a series of commercials for Bounty paper towels and helped make the slogan, "The quicker picker upper," a common catchphrase, which I think they still use.
I think they do. And I think I remember those commercials.
Do you really?
I think I might.
I don't remember when they ended, but now I want to go look it up. You know, like,
I know.
She was adorable. My best guess for why Rory mentions Nancy Walker here and tells Lorelai not to do any impressions of her is because of the role she played on the Mary Tyler Moore Show as Rhoda Morgenstern's mother, Ida. Now, she was a typical wisecracking Jewish mama, a role that Lorelai could easily emulate.
Yeah, I could totally see her being that way.
Mm-hmm. That's normally how she is.
Mm-hmm.
She should be Jewish.
She should. So Lorelai promises to be on her best behavior and they enter the store. Now, I would like to note that when they first walk in the store and the doors closed behind them, you can see a turkey wall decoration on the wall. It's just like a paper, like an old classic artwork style of a turkey. And my grandma used to have those too. She would always put them up at Thanksgiving.
Were they just like, they're just made of paper?
Yeah, they're just like kind of like, you know, some of little kids like decorations for like birthday parties that are just like pieces of like kind of like not cardboard paper, but you know, more like poster type paper.
Yeah.
And yeah, it had those little turkeys on it, and she had a few of them that she would put up around.
That's adorable.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't notice that. I'm gonna have to go look at it. So the girls go in and they grab all the world's most sugar-packed foods, all of them, including marshmallows and jelly beans and chocolate kisses. And I'm feeling sick just thinking about it. And you know how much I love sugar.
I know. I mean, I used to say there's no such thing as too much sugar, but there is. There is.
Yeah, I've noticed like as I'm getting older, if I eat too much sugar, my tummy gets mad.
Me too. Me too. It's like, oh, you mean I can't eat a whole sleeve of Oreos anymore?
I know, right? I can't have a milkshake and then an entire bag of M&Ms and then, you know, blah, 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 blah. No.
Suddenly, Rory spots Dean, and the girls just watch him for a few minutes, talking about him and evaluating his good looks.
They get to the checkout where Dean is performing his bag boy duties, and the cashier asks if they're having another movie night because, you know, it's a small town. Everybody knows what they're up to. And I'm guessing it's also based on, you know, the copious amounts of junk food that they're buying. And Lorelai confirms, and she mentions that they're doing Willy Wonka. And the cashier says, "Oh, is that the one with Gene Hackman?" And then Dean corrects her that it's actually Gene Wilder.
So Lorelai takes this as an opening to try and start a little conversation with Dean, which then, of course, forces Rory to introduce the two of them. Mm-hmm. And everything seems like it went really well. And in fact, on the way out, Lorelai says to her, "See how good I did? I didn't embarrass you or do anything stupid." And then she tells her, "So chill out, supermarket slut." I love it. It's a joke. But I was like, I think it's funny that you thought it was hilarious. And I was like,
what? Okay, well, there's a reason for that. So I always thought that line was super funny, especially because Rory has zero reaction to it. So you get the feeling that this is not uncommon between the two of them.
That's
and
true.
Do you remember in the pilot, in the first episode, Rory notices that Lorelai looks really happy and she asks her, "Did you do something slutty?"
Yes. Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. So it seems like that's a common word that they fling around each other then.
Yes. And I love that because, okay, so I'm going to get on my feminist soapbox here. Feminists have a knack for reclaiming words like slut and like see you next Tuesday and turning them into something else. If not positive, then at least something that has lost its power to be hurtful or insulting. So like if we use it, then if you call me that, so what?
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why I find it funny, because it's not actually an insult.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I remember when I was in college, my first year of college, I'm a little freshman, I know nothing. And I'm waiting in line for a class to open up. And there was this other girl with a bag and she had a pin attached to it that just said CUNT, right? And see you next Tuesday. And I looked at it, I was 18, and I looked at it and I'm like, oh my God, like I was scandalized. Like, how can you do that? It's a bad word and all these things. And she saw me looking at it and she was probably a couple years older than me. And she's like, it's not so scary, is it? And I that stuck out in my memory because I was like, oh my God, she's right. She's totally right. It's just a word and it has the meaning that you assign to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, apparently I also learned from watching that movie Atonement that we as Americans are way more puritanical than even the English. And they use that word a lot more freely than we do.
Yeah, they don't censor their television shows over there. So like it's not uncommon to hear the F word in TV shows over there. Yeah. I remember when my youngest brother, he and I are both huge Harry Potter nerds. I got him into Harry Potter. And so when he was 11, we went to England and we did this like amazing Harry Potter tour. And it went to like all these different places where they filmed the movies and everything. It was amazing. We were in a hotel one night and, you know, we had the TV on and we're like, you know, flipping through and it was like the UK's version of Big Brother. And, you know, my brother's like 11, you know, we were from small town in Michigan. And all of a sudden this guy just starts saying, you know, F this, F that, you know, on the TV. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have to turn the channel.
You know what I think is really sad is that in England, people aren't allowed to own guns. And here we're like, we've got to censor the F word, but everybody can own a gun and go out and do whatever they want with it. Isn't that ridiculous?
Yeah.
Stupid. All right. So Lorelai sends Rory to the video store to get the movie while she gets a coffee, and Dean steps outside to give Lorelai the red vines that they accidentally left at the checkout.
And all of a sudden, Lorelai just blurts out, "What are you doing tonight?" and invites him over for movie night. What is she thinking here?
What is she thinking? I can't
Yes.
believe she did this. So Rory comes back and she's understandably mortified and upset that her mother invited her potential boyfriend to their house for movie night, a night of gluttonous eating, and also her first date.
And Rory kind of gets Lorelai real good here and tells her that this is like something that Emily would do. And it really clearly hurts and offends Lorelai, but she's not wrong. Like that is the type of thing that Emily would do.
I would have to respectfully disagree because Lorelai makes the point. She says, I wasn't trying to humiliate you. If I was Emily Gilmore, I'd be trying to humiliate you.
That's true. Okay. This is true.
It's totally true.
Yeah.
Think about it. It's a fun thing she's suggesting here, theoretically. And I don't think Emily would do something like that, sort of spur of the moment. Like she would think it's impertinent or something.
Yeah. And she'd be more sneaky about it too.
Probably.
Like if she was gonna, because we see her like kind of later on trying to kind of control who like Lorelai goes on dates with, even right later on. Like she's always kind of trying to get her and Christopher back together and, sneaky little ways.
Yeah.
So yeah. Cool. Okay. All right. Well, then I apologize, Lorelai. You were not being like Emily.
And then also that just reminded me, Emily tries to do that with Rory as well. Remember when they throw that Yale party and only invite boys?
Yes. Yeah.
She's trying to control their lives as usual. So Rory is in the next scene. Rory is in her room. She's looking for an outfit for the evening, and she's clearly very nervous and anxious about it all. And Lorelai comes in and helps her with the outfit and with some advice.
And then as she leaves, Rory tells her, "You're like a crazy Elsa Clench." And this was another reference that I had to look up. Elsa Clench was an Australian journalist who moved to New York City, where she wrote fashion articles for magazines like Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. She became a big deal in the fashion journalism world. She was very much revered, very well respected. And she even hosted a CNN show for 20 years called Style with Elsa Clench.
That's amazing. I had no idea who that was.
We learned so much watching this show.
Right? It's educational. Next, we see that the coffee table is completely covered with junk food. And may I say, I would happily consume any and all of the things on that table. It's like they completely read my mind.
Same. I was like, man, this is going to be a good party.
Yeah, right. It's all about the food, man. I mean, decoration's important, but it's all about the food. So this here is one of the many examples of Lorelai spending an insane amount of money on like foods and or snacks. And, given that it's like a single family income, I really don't see how this is realistic. And she does it all the time throughout the series. Like sometimes they'll buy a bunch of food and then they'll just decide not to eat it, like at all. It's so weird. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because they drop like $40 on junk food at the market. So
and like one time I remember they go to Al's Pancake World and they just buy a bunch of food and then they decide they just don't want to eat it. And then they go, oh, let's just go to Luke's. I'm like, what? That's food. What are you doing?
Don't you know there are starving people all over the world?
Exactly.
After we see the gorgeous smorgasbord of junk food, we see the girls sitting on the couch, anxiously awaiting Dean, who is late. And did you notice that Rory is wearing her watch over her sweater?
Did not notice that. Why would someone do that?
I don't know. That was my question. I'm like, that looks really weird. And then Lorelai gets up and she looks out the window and she sees why Dean is late. Babette caught him and is grilling him.
Oh, dear.
Poor Dean.
Poor Dean. So poor Dean. He looks so desperate to flee. And, at least he's sticking it out. We learned that he's polite. That was nice of him. So Lorelai goes out and she frees him. And Babette asks if that's Rory's boyfriend. And Lorelai replies, no, they're just friends. And Babette says, oh, that's not what I heard. There are so many gossips in this town.
So many.
Everybody.
So Lorelai now is trying to get away, but not before Babette keeps going on and on and on about Dean and Rory. And she tells them to make sure to invite them to the wedding and talks about how gorgeous their kids would be. Lorelai's like, oh God, I hope not. And she looked like she was going to have a heart attack right then and there.
I love how she's like, okay, I have to go and shower.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Babette. She's so funny.
What does Babette say about kissing in the supermarket gives new meaning to tasting day? I think
that's what she said.
Yeah, that's what she said. And then that's when Lorelai's like, I need a shower.
Is that a Midwestern thing, tasting day?
I don't know. I don't know.
Fascinating. So we now get to witness the world's most awkward first date. Lorelai gives Dean a tour of the house, mentioning that, upstairs is her room and the good bathroom, which implies that there's another one in the house. But as we all know, there is not. However, in this episode, they pretend like their downstairs hallway closet is a bathroom for some reason. And I don't understand who designed this set and why it was approved by the showrunners. Why wouldn't they make a downstairs bathroom in a 2-level house?
Yeah, that's weird.
It is weird, right?
Yeah. Because if you have guests over, then what, they have to go all the way upstairs?
Into your bedroom?
Or your bedroom.
Pass by? I don't know. I mean, her bathroom isn't attached at this point to her bedroom, but still, it's just weird. It's weird. And then they reference it at some point later on in the show. Do you remember? I don't remember when it was, but anyway, I'll point it out at that point.
So the tour ends up in the kitchen, naturally, as they're going through the downstairs. And the doorbell rings, and they assume that it's the pizza. So Lorelai goes to answer the door. And while she's gone, Dean asks what's in the next room, which is, of course, Rory's room. And so she lets him in while she awkwardly just stands at the door. I thought it was pretty bold of Dean to just be like, hey, can I go in your room? Like, what?
Yeah, bold or super rude. He just walks right in it. I would not be okay with that. If I were Lorelai, I'd be like, get out of my daughter's room. What are you doing?
Yeah, no kidding.
So we see at the door that it was not the pizza guy, like they thought, but instead it's Suki who brought dessert because they needed more dessert. And she's clearly there to scope out Dean. Like she knew the date was happening and she wanted to get a look at him. Like she hasn't seen him at the store. But anyway, Lorelai tries her best to get rid of Suki before the kids find out she's there, being nosy, but to no avail.
Poor Rory in this scene when she sees Suki, she looks like she's going to vomit. He's just like, oh my God. So when Dean takes the pizza to the living room, Rory says to Lorelai, why didn't you just set up a camera and broadcast it all over the internet?
And then I think Lorelai says, I didn't think that far ahead or something like that. I don't think that big.
Something like that, yeah.
So as the girls make their way into the living room, Lorelai says to Dean, we didn't know what kind you liked, so we just got everything, everything pizza. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you don't know what someone likes on their pizza. You put everything on it? No, you get plain cheese pizza, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't that make more sense?
Yes.
Yes. Otherwise, how presumptuous. What if you're
There's a reason
onions or something?
There's a reason why when you go to a kid's birthday party that has pizza, it's cheese pizza.
It's cheese. And maybe if you're lucky, one pepperoni. But other than that, yeah, I don't know. It's just gross. And then secondly, okay, that was the first of all. Secondly, they got one pizza for 3 people. One of them being a teenage boy, which, they could eat an entire pizza themselves. Plus, knowing how much Lorelai and Rory can pack away because those girls can eat. I'm like, you got one pizza. I would have gotten at least 3 mediums. What do you think?
Well, I think maybe just because of all the other junk food that they had, that maybe that's why they only got 1 pizza.
That's clever because they got a ton of other crap on the table. Okay, I will forgive it. I would have said 2 pizzas then. That's fine. And besides, you always want leftover pizza.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was second. Now, third, I don't believe that Lorelai and Rory Gilmore would eat that many vegetables on their pizza. No way. Everyone knows that vegetables ruin pizza, right? No,
I don't know. I like peppers and onions on my pizza.
You don't.
I do. I
don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, fine. I can forgive a couple of veggies, but an everything pizza, come on.
Yeah, that's a lot. I can't do. Well, I hate mushrooms and olives. So
yes. Anyway, okay, that's the end of my rant.
Okay, that was a fun little rant.
Yeah.
So now we see that they are deep in the movie, and Rory grabs yet another slice of pizza. Which, there's still pizza in the one box. Yeah, okay. And Dean says, "Whoa, you can eat." To which Rory proudly replies, "Yes, I can." And then she's like, "Wait, that's bad, isn't it?" And when I saw this, I was like, you know what? Kudos to Rory. Because, as Dean says, most girls won't eat in front of a guy, but she doesn't care. And I just thought that, it shows a great level of maturity and self-confidence in Rory to just not be bothered that a boy's there, and that's going to make her not eat.
I never had this experience of not eating in front of boys. Did you?
I have always been very self-conscious about eating around anybody.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was always like, if I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. What? Don't judge me.
You're amazing for that.
I don't know. And I always had the chubby girl thing too of like, well, what are people going to think? Like, of course, the chubby girl's eating because she's hungry all the time. I thought about that. But then in the back of my mind, I was like, well, yeah,
Obviously, I like to eat.
Honestly, God. So we learned that Lorelai has had recurring dreams of marrying an Oompa Loompa. It feels like there's a lot to unpack there. Very odd. And then she teases Rory for having a crush on Prince Charming, and Rory clarifies that it's the Sleeping Beauty one, not Cinderella.
And Ani, I would like to see now if you're as big of a Disney nerd as I am, because this really bugged me. Because Prince Charming is from Cinderella. The prince in Sleeping Beauty is Prince Philip, not Prince Charming. And then also a little side note, I totally had a crush on Prince Eric from The Little Mermaid when I was a kid.
See that? He had very striking eyes, nice boy. I did catch the Charming and Prince Philip thing. I was like, no, that's inaccurate.
Very good.
And what else is, ironic about that is that later, after Gilmore Girls went into syndication, it was through ABC Family, which is a Disney-owned property.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, anyway, that's an aside. So you had a crush on Prince Eric. Get this. I had a crush on Simba. Simba the lion. The grown-up Simba, not the child Simba. I don't know. To this day, I don't know exactly what it was. I think it's probably Matthew Broderick's voice, which I find very pleasant.
Yeah. And I mean, he was a good looking lion.
He was a good looking lion. I mean, lions don't look like that in real life. He's all airbrushed. His hair was all blow dried.
Yeah. He looked like he just had a blowout,
So weird. Okay. So Lorelai leaves to make popcorn to give, Dean and Rory a little bit of alone time. And when she comes back, she sees them talking and giggling. And so she decides to give them some space. Now, something I noticed, I don't know if this counts as a background check or whatever, but if you look, when Lorelai sits down at the kitchen table, there's a giant bowl of red apples on that table.
That's right.
This is not the Gilmore way. They do not just randomly eat fruit What the hell?
Maybe it's wax.
It's just decoration.
Yeah. Make it
could
look
buy
like
that.
they're trying to be healthy. I don't know.
Right.
So then we see Rory adjust herself slightly, and Dean, the gentleman, grabs a pillow to prop behind her. So romantic. And then we see Rory staring at Dean for a few seconds, and of course he notices. And he kind of looks at her and he's like, hey, in this like teenage trying to be sexy voice. And Rory promptly jumps up and is like, I'll be right back.
Like she's terrified.
Yeah. So she, of course, is going to the kitchen to talk to her mom. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but I saw it was just a cute little catch. As Rory is coming down the hall towards the kitchen, you can see Dean sticking his head out from like around the corner, like kind of watching her.
I never noticed that. So Rory goes, get back in there. And Lorelai asks her if he did something, like if he tried something. But Rory just tells her that he smells and looks amazing. And she goes on this cute little rant. And then she blurts out that she said thank you after he kissed her.
And then Lorelai, not knowing that she's referencing the only kiss that they had, she says, he kissed you again? What is he, out of prison or something? And then she tells her she's talking about the kiss at the grocery store. And then she goes back into her little panicky rant and she says to Lorelai, what kind of chaperone are you?
Rory says she just doesn't want to do anything moronic. And Lorelai says one of my all-time favorite quotes, I'm afraid once your heart is involved, it all comes out in moron.
So true.
They obviously can't walk back into the living room together because that, might look a little sus. So Lorelai says she's going to go in first and she tells Rory to go to the bathroom. Now, keep in mind, this bathroom doesn't actually exist. So Rory is hanging out in a coat closet for the next few minutes.
And then I would also like to note that the popcorn bowl that Lorelai is carrying clearly has fake popcorn in it because she's just kind of swinging that bowl around, and that would totally make a huge popcorn mess.
So when I read this, I was like, oh my God, that's so funny. It made me crack up because I've seen this 1,000 times. I never noticed that before. And when she was first walking out of the kitchen, she wasn't moving the bowl that much. So I was like, what is Sarah talking about? She's not moving it. And then she walks into the living room. She's just swinging it around.
It. I know. It's not a yo-yo, Lorelai.
Looks like that. Yeah, that was definitely they super glued down like some plastic popcorn into a bowl. That's what I think.
Yeah. So now it's just Dean and Lorelai, and they are watching the movie in silence for a few moments. And then Lorelai pauses the movie and gives him the talk. And she basically tells him that the whole town is watching and adores Rory and basically threatens his life if anything happens to Rory.
This kind of reminded me of that scene in Clueless, which I'm sure you've seen Clueless, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Okay, of course. When Christian goes to pick up Cher for their date, and he meets Cher's dad, who says, hey, you, anything happens to my daughter, I got a 45 and a shovel. I doubt anyone would miss you.
So after Lorelai gives Dean her little speech, Dean then asks if he can speak, and he tells her that he really cares about Rory and that he has no intention of hurting her.
So little side note, at 41 minutes, 6 seconds, you hear Dean, always hating on Dean, you hear him pronounce the T at the end of the word that. Like he's punching it in the face for insulting his mother. This is just how he talks. Like from now until forever, you're going to notice that he overpronounces the syllable or the letters at the end of his words. It's really annoying.
I'm definitely gonna.
He goes, you know that. Oh my God.
I'm definitely gonna be listening for that.
Oh yeah.
So then Dean asks Lorelai to please not hate him because if she does, he doesn't stand a chance with Rory. And Lorelai seems a little pleased at this. Mm-hmm. And then she tells him that she wants to like him and she usually gets what she wants. So then finally the movie is over and Rory is outside saying goodnight to Dean and she apologizes for the awkwardness of the evening.
And they have a little kiss and he tells her thank you as he walks away. And then Rory goes up to Lorelai's room to say goodnight. And Lorelai tells her that she just wished Rory had told her about the kiss. She's kind of blue about it. She says she's not mad. She just really wanted to hear about it.
And so then Rory is like, okay. And then she excitedly jumps on the bed to tell her everything. And she starts with, I was in the aisle where the ant spray is. And Lorelai responds with, that's a good aisle. And Rory says, I know, that's what mine said too. And I just thought that was cute.
What do you think that means?
I don't know. I think they're just saying any aisle you get kissed in is a good aisle, I guess. I don't know.
And then we get the pull out through the window as they keep talking, which I think is so sweet.
Yeah.
They do that a lot on this show. And that was Kiss and Tell.
We hope you enjoyed it. Tune in next time for season 1, episode 8, Love and War and Snow.
Copper boom.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and share with your friends.
If you have any questions or comments, if you feel like we left anything out or got anything wrong, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at the Gilmore Gals Pod. And we also have a Facebook page.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes.
Copper boom!